Next one is Tel Aviv in Israel. I was surprised when I went there at the lack of any military presence. I expected armed people everywhere. I did not see it. This was last year. A huge amount of history. I enjoyed the Israel trip probably more than any of the places that I've gone. The amount of history is profound. Probably the most memorable one was an entire city at the end of the Crusades that the Turks took back from the Christians. It was a 3-story castle. The Turks must have been really unhappy with the Christians because the general said, bury it. And he had the slaves take stuff from the nearby areas, and they basically raised the floor level of the city 3 stories. And then, for good measure, they built a Muslim town on top. And now they're excavating. Very interesting. The tour guide was very interesting because just in a matter-of-fact way, while we were driving along on the tour, he educated us on how many people there are in Israel. And I don't remember the exact numbers, but roughly what he said was there are 4 million Israelis. There are 3 million Jewish people. There are 1 million good Palestinians who are citizens. But unlike the Jewish Israelis, they are not required to do mandatory service. In fact, they aren't allowed to do the mandatory military service. And then there are 1 million, quote, bad Palestinians. So that was just a matter-of-fact comment. As we drove along, apparently things are pretty segregated because he would say there's a Jewish town and over here is a Muslim town and here's the Jewish district of Jerusalem and here's the other district. The most interesting airport experience I've ever had was there. This was the 5-week trip. At the beginning of the trip, I went to see my foreign exchange student family in Austria, and my niece, my Austrian brother's daughter, had lived in Tanzania and Zanzibar and written a tour book. She gave me an autographed copy of it, and I slipped it in my bag. When I went through to leave the country, they have multiple layers of security. I had the letter from the company. I was with Teradata people in Israel and talked to the banks and the telephone companies there who are customers. And I put everything that they might be interested in one bag. And when I went through, I showed them the letter, so that got me in a different queue. And then they asked me the usual question that we get asked of, did anybody give you anything as a gift? And I was honest. I said, well, our local people, the people who wrote that letter, gave me a book about Israel, and I didn't unwrap it. And so they put me in another line and said, show us the book. So I had to pull the book out. Then they said, show us the other book. And I said, well, that's the only book that I have. They said, no, that's not true. Show us the other book. And we went back and forth. And finally I opened the bags and I started going through all the pockets. I had forgotten about that tour book. I slipped it in a part I never ever look in, I never use. And they were absolutely right that I had one more book. Israel was interesting because of the traditions. It turns out that our corporate people in Israel are 3rd generation, so they have all these pictures of the old timers. So the grandfather immigrated from Germany in 1932 and sold the very first cash register in all of Israel, and they have all the pictures and all the celebrations over time. So it's nice to have a kind of a family connection there. They took me out for wonderful meals. The things that you get on the menu aren't quite the same here, a lot of skewered things. When you walk in, kind of like Raffaello's, they start bringing dishes of things before you even order. But you might be able to see here, you could get skewered mutton or mutton fat. That doesn't sound too appealing. Skewered turkey testicles happen to be on the menu, so people in other parts of the world eat things that we cannot always eat. So that was Israel. I've been to Beijing twice. I was just there in November giving a talk. Beijing is an interesting city because they had done a lot of changes for the Olympics. Things that I found very interesting. First off, our customers there tend to be an order of magnitude in terms of the number of customers that they put in the database. So, for example, China Mobile, the big mobile phone company, has 425 million current subscribers in the database, and they are gaining mobile users at the rate of about 40 million per quarter. Just to give you an idea of the size of the account. For us, it's a good opportunity because like the old AT&T, they had different operating divisions. AT&T had 9. Remember when they broke them up? So you have Southwest Bell and all these other groups. They have 25, 8 of whom are Teradata customers. So we have a lot of growth opportunity, which is why I was there. The airport is brand new. The airport has 2 big halls about a mile apart. The international one is easily the size of all of the terminals that LAX put together. I think there are 140 gate positions. And then they have monorail, and the domestic one has an equally large number. So they are ready for growth there. When you go through immigration, they're very polite, and when you stand there, there's a button, and you get to rate how good the service was of the person that lets you into the country. They want your feedback. The Olympics was clearly their showcase, so you go to a variety of areas, all cleaned up.